Hello, hello, and welcome to my thought on this lovely Tuesday. Um, I've been thinking about being politically correct. With all these riots with George Floyd, I really understand how difficult it is to not say the wrong thing, be really careful. I think you might know that when I was a child, one of my favorite books was a book called Little Black Sambo, and that has been banned, which is a shame because it was a beautiful, beautiful children's book. Um, we no longer can call somebody fat. We have to say they're a woman of a certain size. And then when it comes to identifying people by sex, we just can't do it. You can't say he or she. You call them they. It just is totally mixed up, and it feels very confusing. But it's no less confusing than it was in the 40s. In the 30s and 40s, the United States was inundated with immigrants, and especially uh, at the end of the war, we had the Holocaust survivors and all the people who were escaping the communists, and they were all there. So we had a great many people in those days, that tried to be very American. I don't think that people would really want to be very American today, not with Donald Trump and everybody dropping dead. If they aren't killed by the police, they're killed by the virus. But then everybody was trying to be very American. For example, my father's name was Isidore Rudolph, and he changed his name to IR so that people would not know he was Jewish because he was an accountant, and he thought that would affect his client base. His brother, my uncle SD, was Samuel David, and he changed his name to SD. My mother was absolutely determined to look American. There's an ethnic way of dressing, particularly in those days. Old world women wore sturdy Oxfords and flowered dresses, and my mama studied the fashion magazines so that she would look very American. She did not want anyone to know she was Jewish, and she always said to me, "We we never do laundry on Sundays because it will offend the neighbors." One of the interesting things is that in America, they had little effigies of little black boys holding a lantern outside these large estates. And in the black area of the wealthier black area of Toledo, Ohio, I saw the same little black boy with a lantern, except they had whitewashed his face because they wanted to melt in. It was America, the melting pot. And one of my favorite stories is that we had a shoemaker, and this was an old fashioned shoemaker. He actually made shoes and he repaired them. And his name, as far as I was concerned, was Bill Mason. And that was who he was, and that's how I knew him. And whenever I would come into his shop with my shoes that needed new heels or new soles, I would hear Bill Mason singing. Oh, God, he had the most beautiful voice. And the radio was always tuned to opera. Now, this is when I was a little girl. Now, we're going to flash ahead to when I was about 36. So that would be about 25 years later. Bill Mason was still repairing shoes. However, he tried out for the Toledo Opera Company opera, and he got the lead in La Boheme. He became Rodolfo, and his voice was magic, and people thought he was absolutely wonderful. And he became a key member of the Toledo Operatic Society, Bill Mason. However, when he was accepted, by that time it was 19 in the 1980s, when we had acceptance and love of people, and was the 1980s? No, it was the 1960s, where we were having the love revolution. And now everybody was talking about acceptance. We were angry at McCarthy for his purge of the communists. And Bill Mason became Bill Mazzetti. And that was when we decided we were going to be ourselves. So now we've done an about face, and we don't want people to identify us by our ethnic origins, or our sex, or our size, or our color, or our race. And I think, especially after all these riots, it would be very lovely if all of us had the courage to stand up tall and to not only be ourselves, but call ourselves what we are. If you're black, you're black. If you're Jewish, you're Jewish. If you're a big woman, you're fat. That's it. You're fat. That's not a terrible thing. It's what you are. If you've got a dick, you're a man. If you don't have a dick and you have a vagina, you're a woman. This politically correct stuff will never ever work. I always think of things like, what do you say? Everybody tries to say the politically correct thing now, and it's just a losing battle. For example, you're walking down the street and you see somebody with a baby. You see somebody with a baby, and the baby looks like a caged monkey. What do you say? They say, this is my baby. You can't say that's a beautiful baby, because it's not a beautiful baby. But you can't say something to hurt the mother's feelings. So what you say is, that's a baby. And that's my advice for how to be politically correct. If somebody says to you, how do I look? You say beautiful. And if they say to you, do these slacks make my pants, do these slacks make me look fat? You say to them, no, your bum makes you look fat. And thank you so much for joining me for my thoughts.